All right, what's going on, guys? This is Coach JC, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Win All Day podcast show. I am super excited. I have a special guest in the house today, and I had to bring her on the screen right now from the beginning because she's absolutely amazing, and she's going to help me as we kick off today our winning confession. Hey, if you're a frequent listener, you know what time it is. It is time for our Win All Day winning confession. If it's your first time, we believe there's power in your words, that you cannot live a life of winning if you're speaking losing words. So I need you to repeat after me. Today is my day.
Today is my day.
Nothing will get in my way.
Nothing will get in my way
of me being the best.
Of me being the best
version of me. I am here on purpose.
I am here on purpose.
I have a purpose.
I have a purpose.
I am strong.
I am strong.
I am passionate.
I am passionate.
I am fearless.
I am fearless.
I choose faith.
I choose faith.
I am a winner.
I am a winner.
I will win.
I will win.
And win all day.
And win all day.
I love it. Let's go. Take your right hand, take your left hand, put it together. I am super excited. Without further ado, our guest of the Win All Day podcast show today is the one and only Miss Jill Donovan. How are you, my friend?
Hi, JC. I could do that confession all day long. Everybody should do it all day long.
I love it, girl. I love it. And we do that all day long in our programs. And I'm so excited to have you. I want to give you a quick kind of, I don't want to say formal, but informal introduction. And then I'm going to hand it over to you. You're one of the coolest people I know. I'm super excited to have you on a podcast. And I knew you from Rustic Cup, which is like an amazing national brand, worldwide brand. And then I just discovered some of the other cool things you're doing with the book and speaking and all this stuff. So I cannot wait to get into it today. And so without further ado, this is Jill Donovan. Jill Donovan is an amazing, successful entrepreneur. She's an author and a speaker. And she has a podcast that I just learned about, the real life. I can't wait to get into that. And also a blog where she talks about events in her life and just real life. And so Jill combines the practical wisdom. I know she's super funny and has a great humor, and her hard-earned lessons in her life so that she can continue to pursue her passions and what she believes God called her to do, and that's give back to this world. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But I know Jill does have some setbacks that we're going to talk about, because we believe that every setback is an opportunity for a comeback. So without further ado, please welcome to the Win All Day podcast show, my good friend, Miss Jill Donovan. How are you, my friend?
Thank you for having me, JC. Do people feel like when they're around you that they should talk like this and respond to all your questions like this?
That's
go.
What
I feel like I should do.
Let's go. Yes, you were whispering that winning confession, right? Yeah, so 100%.
I didn't know if I was supposed to say it out loud or not, but I just get excited when I'm around you. I always do. Okay.
Well, you know what? I am excited to have you on the show today, and I'm excited that you said that, because that's one of my callings in this life. And I believe, I just made a post on this, Jill, that there's 3 things that I don't care what industry you're in, I don't care what you're trying to do with business or life, that if you want to make more, do more, and be more, a lot of life has to do with how you show up. And so I always talk about passion, I always talk about energy, and I always talk about love. If you show up passion driven, and we can talk about purpose as well, but like you love what you do, you're excited about life. It doesn't matter if it's in a marriage, it doesn't matter if it's in a career, and you show up with a high energy and you show up loving people. It doesn't matter what language people speak. It doesn't matter where you go. I believe those 3 things right there can make a great impact. And I believe that everybody understands and loves passion, energy, and love. So I appreciate you noticing that and recognizing that in me. And it's part of my calling. So thank you for saying that, my friend.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the invite. What an honor to be here on Win All Day.
Let's go. Well, I gave you a very informal introduction. Here's what I would like you to do for the listeners that may not know who you are. Just talk to us a little, just real life. That's what you do. Talk real life about Jill Donovan and how we got to where we are today. Maybe a little of your story and background and stuff.
Awesome. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in a Jewish home. Both my mom and dad are Jewish all around, as far as you could go, not a Gentile in the family. My mom's teenage idol was Pat Boone. You're probably too young to know who Pat Boone was, JC, but she met Pat Boone one day in Las Vegas, and long story short, she met God when she met Pat Boone. He baptized her in the swimming pool in Las Vegas, and our family then met God as a result, and completely transformed our lives. So I I always take the time when I start to thank this one man for knowing his Bible and taking the time. And you probably don't know who Pat Boone was, but he was sort of like the Justin Bieber of the 60s.
Wow.
Without all the tattoos. Yeah. So growing up, I felt very different, but not different in a bad way, different called in a big way, just not really knowing what that meant. I sensed it. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be something big, like going to the Olympics to be a gymnast. And that was what I thought I was going to do. When that fell through, because I could never really get the splits, I was just destroyed by my coach who told me, Jill, you need to pursue something else. And at 9, I thought, you know what, if I can't pursue this, I'm going to every year for the rest of my life do one hobby a year. I'm going to be passionate about one thing for 365 days every single year for the remainder of my life, so that by the time I die, I will have experienced so many things. Wow. And be able to connect with so many people instead of just the gymnasts at the Olympics. And so I started at 10, and I'm 52 now. And for 42 years, I have for 365 days focused on one thing. Now, when I was younger, I mean, it has varied. You name whatever your favorite thing that you have tried, I have also tried. And at the end of the year, I just say, okay, God, what is it that you want me to do for the whole next year? What do you want me to focus on? And some years it's been the saxophone. So one year I was 25 and I bought a pair of tap shoes and took tap dancing lessons for the whole year. I mean, wow. And never really knowing exactly why, just knowing that is what my heart was drawn to. One year I studied Russian for a whole year, wanting to become fluent in Russian. I mean, a lot of different tools in the tool belt, knowing that probably one year I would say, okay, this is what I was called to do. Thinking that this was possibly a path that at the end of the year, I would say, okay, is this what I'm called to do? You know, you go through so many years and you see people land in their field and you think, where's my thing? So I thought, well, maybe I'm called to be an attorney. And so that's what I did for 365 days for 4 years in a row. Went to law school, became an attorney, realized I don't want to be an attorney. But after having spent that much money and that much time, I pursued that for a few years. And then I became a law school professor for 8 years. But during this whole period of time, I still was different hobbies every year. And I loved life. I just never landed in that space where you can wake up and say, I get to go do this. Wow. Instead of, everybody wakes up and says, I have to go do this. I have to go to work. I have to go take my kids here. And God convicted me, like, you mean the kids you prayed for after 3 miscarriages? These are the kids you prayed for. And now you're saying I have to go pick up my kids at midnight. No, I get to go do this because this is the thing I prayed for. I wanted to wake up and say, I sound like you. I'm so, I don't normally sound this much at this early in the morning, but I didn't find it. But yet I knew that God wastes nothing. Come on. That nothing that I had done since I was 10 was going to be wasted as far as these hobbies were concerned. And long story short, and I won't get into it on here, but one year I landed in the middle of on the Oprah show. And that then turned into, a few years later, deciding to design bracelets as my hobby that year. And through all of that whole journey, the year I started bracelets, God just put on my heart to start giving away these bracelets. And I started giving them away. And when I gave them away, the very first person I gave one away to, they were just bracelets that had quotes on them, like win all day, one day at a time, be all there, every moment matters. I created this not because I wanted a business, just because this was my hobby. And I felt compelled to start giving them away. The very first person I gave one away to was this girl at the grocery store. And I went up to her and I said, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to give you this bracelet. And there were tons of people in the grocery store staring at me. It was a very weird thing. I had not just taken something off of my wrist. And I had 3 bracelets I had made that I felt like I was supposed to give away. And this girl looks at me and she started to cry and weep right in the grocery store. She was a cashier. And I said, I'm sorry, so sorry if this has upset you. Are you okay? And she said, I've never seen you before, ma'am, but yesterday I was in the doctor's office after I'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. I just found out in his office. And I prayed through my tears and asked God to give me a sign of hope that everything was going to be okay. And I looked down at this bracelet that I had made during this hobby year, and it was a pink bracelet, the color for breast cancer. And she looked back at me and she said, thank you for being that sign of hope. And it was that moment that I knew that for the rest of my life, that is what I was called to do, was to give away hope every day. And for 11 years, it has been in the form of a bracelet. I started a company called Rustic Cuff. And for 11 years, it grew to, hundreds of employees, stores around the country. I really didn't want any of that. I call, I sort of accidentally corporate, because that is not, I'm anything but corporate. But God said, hey, for this season in life, this is what you are called to do. And I started giving bracelets away every single day. And he blessed it, he favored it. And that brings me up to, that was a mouthful, but you wanted some background, and there's that.
Wow, I love it. So many great things in there, Jill. First of all, thanks for sharing that. And so I think the first thing I want to talk about just for a moment is we want to see you do splits right here live. Can we do a split? Because you mentioned gymnasts, right? No, just joking.
Yep. I won't ever get back up, but I can definitely do them now.
Yeah, no, so I think the person listening right now, I think something you said is so powerful. And there's kind of two sides to this. I think you might have people listening saying, well, how you ever master anything if you just try something different all these years since you're 10, right? How do you ever become a master at anything, right? And so I think the flip side of that is I think there's so many people that go through life that have no passion. They don't love what they do. And I'm a big believer. I coach people every single day on love what you do what you love. And I coach people how to take your passion and make a living doing that. I think that's super important. There's so many people stuck hating what they do. And so I think what you said is key for a lot of people listening. If you're out there right now and you're trying to figure out what am I passionate about, just try some stuff. And maybe it's not committing for 365 years, but try more stuff. Like you said, God doesn't waste anything, right? God doesn't waste anything. I think a lot of people, they take a step back, they get stuck in one thing, they get scared to try. Just keep trying things. I mean, think about how many things you tried at 10 years old and you're 52 to this day. That's an absolute big takeaway for me is I think if you're listening right now and you're trying to find your passion, just start trying some new things like Jill did. That's beautiful. So, hey, rattle off some other things. So saxophone, what else have you tried? Just give us a few.
So, I mean, this is 42 years of things. One year I bought a harmonica and I took it around, carried it around in my purse. And anywhere I would find out somebody's birthday, I would play happy birthday, Christmas carols. I still to this day carry, seriously, I carry the harmonica in my purse because at any point it can come in handy. You never know. Also, let's see, cooking lessons, sewing lessons. I played poker for a year. I joined every poker tournament that I could find around the country. I did Texas Hold'em. I know they're not all of them. Magic lessons. One year was all memory. I memorized every single day of the year, what famous person was born and one historical event on that day. So when I would meet somebody, instead of saying, when's your what do you do for a living and go there, I would say, when's your birthday? And then we'd have a completely different conversation because I could tell them, something really, a few cool things that happened on their birthday. It is so even though and I totally agree with you, jack of all trades, master of none. The thing is if you do these things, it doesn't mean you have to stop at 365 days. For example, the harmonica, I did it, I think when I was 21 years old. Now here we are, 20 plus years later, I carry it with me every day. It is not wasted. I learned Russian. I then went on to, I lived in Russia for a summer, and then I went and took Russian in college and after college. So now when I meet Russian people, because this is a hobby I did before I was a teenager. So nothing, God wastes nothing. I mean, then there was, oh my gosh, there was cooking, sewing, like, I ask people, tell me the thing that painting, graffiti, gardening. I mean, everything that I loved and didn't love, but now the communication that I am able to, that transpires with people. But here's the thing, it might be jack of all trades, master of none, but as you continue in things that you really enjoyed and developed, you can become excellent at something. Doesn't mean you have to just drop it after 365 days. So some of these things I've developed, I joined Toastmasters for a year.
Yeah.
When I had a terrible speech that I gave when I was 22, it was about, is the glass half empty or half full? My prop was a glass of water. I walked in and I forgot that it was my prop, and I drank the whole thing of water. I drank my prop, and I didn't get the job. That was a speech for a job, and I wound up joining Toastmasters for a year, which then that grew into then speaking and speaking engagements. But so nothing is wasted. I can tell you every single thing God has used to this day for an amazing purpose that I couldn't have seen at the time I was doing it. And what I tell people when I don't know what it is I would like to do, I love the idea that you do a hobby for every year, but I don't even know where I would start. This is what I say. What is the one thing that somebody tells you that when they talk about what they're doing, you want to go look it up on YouTube because you just want to learn a little bit more about it? Start with that thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Start with a thing that when you're laying in bed at night, if you can't sleep, that you might Google or that you might look up on YouTube and start. Just people don't start because they think I'll never be good at that. Well, you won't be if you never pick it up. 15 minutes a day, by the end of the year, the amount of hours you would have spent doing this one hobby, you'd be amazed at how good you can get after spending 15 minutes a day at something.
Wow. Yeah, and I think you hit on so many things. Like, people don't start, and I think when people start too, Jill, and you're a very unique individual. I'm just being honest with you. I think number one, you have a lot of talent to be able to pick up all these things and then continue to, like Russian, right? For a year now, you know Russian, right? Russian, harmonica, saxophone. Obviously, I think a lot of people don't start, but then a lot of people, they're not committed enough to see it through. For you to see something through for a whole year to actually become good at it, right? And most people, the practice time is not the sexy time. The practice time is not the fun time. And people start stuff that they're not committed to long enough to even see if they can become great at it. So like, look at how you can still speak Russia, you can still play the harmonica, like you can still do a lot of these things.
But that is not because I'm good. I am not good at really a lot of these things at all. I'm serious. But the thing is, I'm better than I would be if I hadn't picked it up at all. And the key to this, JC, seriously, and this was not learned at 10 years old, but the key to this was you can't do it on a Monday and then think on Saturday, oh shoot, I forgot I'm doing this thing. So I started this practical way of doing the same thing every day for a year. And I put on three little beaded bracelets. Well, because we make bracelets and I can steal them for free, buy them for free, get them for free. And I did this for everybody in my corporate office. There were 50 of us here, and I gave everybody 3 bracelets. And I said, what is one thing that you want your December self to look back to your January self and say, thank you for having started that? Like, name one thing that when you get to the end of the year that you will say, I want to thank myself 365 days ago. Name one thing. And so whatever that thing was, let's just say it is get in shape. Well, let's just be practical and say lose 15 pounds. Okay. Then I gave each person 3 bracelets, and I said, what are 3 things that you could do every day that when you get to December, you will be so glad you did? So they named it, 50 push-ups, and I'm just making this up, 50 push-ups a day, no sugar, and walk for 10 minutes. Each bracelet represented that. I asked people to commit to not going to sleep until you transfer the bracelet to the other wrist. Once you transferred all 3 bracelets, you can go to sleep. You wake up in the next morning, put them all back on your right hand. That means that even on Sundays, on sick days, on your birthdays, on holidays, you will not go to sleep. And you can start small. 10 minutes a day of walking, you transfer the bracelet. Do you know who inspires me when I do that? Myself. When I get to transfer the bracelet, I don't have to go to Instagram to see somebody inspiring me, because I transferred the bracelet and I saw that for this day, I did those 50 push-ups. I transferred it. I wake up the next morning and I do it all over. And then I get to December. And even if, you miss days here and there, you get to December and you're like, I'm going to do that for something else because I see how well that worked. And it does work. And my people, my friends here at work are still doing this. And you see, you cannot reach a goal with just having said it. And I mean, words are absolutely powerful. Like you said, you cannot reach it. You have to write it down. You have to move the marker daily to say, I did it. Now I'm going to do it again. And that is how all these hobbies started getting good. But make no mistake, I am not good. I'm terrible at the harmonica still, but in my mind, I'm good. And that is all that counts.
Wow, wow, wow. Like, if you're just joining us, this is Jill Donovan, and we're talking about winning in life. And I'm telling you right now, like, what you just said, Jill, is so powerful, because I'm like, and I want to talk to the person right now, Jill, that might be listening and say, hey, I feel like I'm an underdog maybe, or I don't have the skills. Like, what you're saying is so powerful. In our programs, Win All Day, we call it stacking wins, right? In the financial industry, it's compounding interest, right? Time works just like money. It can work for you or against you. And so many people never see who they can be or what they're capable of because they are not committed long enough. And what Jill just said, if we stop this podcast right now and you're listening, that one thing can change your life. We're talking about the discipline to be committed. And so before we move on, Jill, I don't want to miss it. I want to ask the listener right now, because I feel like this is something that could radically, radically change somebody's life. And this is what we coach on. A lot of people, they come to us. I'm not doing anything that's really that special. I have my winning way and I'm really good at what I do, but I get people to stay accountable and do what they say they're going to do. So many times we break promises to ourselves. So if you're listening right now and you want to be great at something, I hope you're inspired by Jill, but don't just be inspired. Ask yourself the question right now, am I committed? Are you all in? Do you finish what you start? Like, what you say you are going to do you do? What are you committed to, I should say?
Yeah.
Like, and commitment's a choice. It's not a feeling. Like Jill said, like holidays, tired, sick days, like you still do it and you don't move that bracelet. That same commitment takes sacrifice. Commitment takes effort. So I'm asking you right now, as you tune in, you're listening, what are you truly committed to right now in life? I know for me, I would hate to live and die average. Some people never go all in, and because of that, they never experience what they can really be in business or mission or calling or marriage or health, like you mentioned. You can't expect to get something you're not willing to give. What is it? Galatians 6:8. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, right? For whatever a man soweth, he shall also reap. And some of you listening right now, I believe you just tuned in to hear that one word from Jill. Some of you listening right now have not even seen who you can fully be and what you can fully have, because you have not thrown yourself all into your dreams. You talked about it, but you haven't fully committed. You talked about the body. You talked about the relationship. You talked about the business. What are you willing to give for what you want to get? Are you all in? You're either casual or committed. And so, Jill, beautiful word on that, girlfriend. I'm so glad you said that. And I believe that just could change somebody's life. And so talk to me about, let's go here for a second, just so people understand the power of what this did for you, not only mastering skills, and you've mastered a lot of skills by being committed, not being good in the beginning, not even knowing it, but you said for 365 days, not 364, not when I feel like it, 365 days, every single day I'm going to do something. Let's talk business real quick and just tell people really the success. And this is not to brag, but I want people to understand how this same philosophy has built an amazing business. Talk to people right now about Rustic Cuff, the impact it's had, the stores that, how many stores you have, maybe, I don't know if you want to say revenue, whatever you want to say. I want people to understand how big Rustic Cuff is, because this worked for you, not just playing the harmonica, saxophone, but in business. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just talk to us a little about the success of Rustic Cuff.
Well, I'll start with one of my favorite quotes, and maybe TD Jake said it, was what you may not be doing the thing that you were created to do right now, but it may be the thing that leads you to the thing that leads you to the thing. So don't stop where you are as if it were the destination, because people just give up like, this isn't what I want to do. Yeah. When merely it's the transportation to get you to where you are. One of the things that people stop, and I could have said the same in business, I could have stopped initially because I was a communications major and then an attorney, not an entrepreneur. I wasn't even entrepreneurial minded. you know why I didn't want to be an entrepreneur? Because to me, it meant work, and any work in my life always meant I have to do this.
Wow.
Work always felt like just dragging yourself out of bed. I didn't realize that work could be something that you say, I get to. And really, it felt like God was calling me to build an ark, and I had only canoe instructions in front of me. That's what this felt like. And all he said every day was, I'm not asking you to build the entire ark today. I am only going to give you one plank today, and I'll tell you where to put that one plank. And if you continue to do that each day, 365 days, you keep doing that, you're going to look back in January and go, okay, I've come a long way just by one plank a day. And so through Rustic Cuff, it was just me for the first year, and then it was 4 employees, and then it went to 20, and then 40, and then we got up to 150, and I had 2 beautiful little girls, and I didn't want employees. I mean, they were my friends. I did not feel like I was called to have a bunch of people working for me. But when you say yes to God, he says, you don't even have to think about it like that. I will give you one plank. That is the only thing you have to think about. Because if I would have seen the big picture of that Rustic Cuff became, I would have probably said, I am happy to stay at home and play tennis and do my thing. So it grew so fast and so big that it could have taken us out, because it grew so fast. And we started planting stores in Texas, 2 in Texas, 3 in Oklahoma. We just got into Disney 2 years ago, and it really grew so big. But JC, it is a bracelet. We do sell bracelets that I love, the bracelets that we make, and we make a whole lot of them right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But it just so happens that it's a bracelet. It could have been anything. It's that I threw my whole heart. I like to sleep. I like to sleep in, but when you find something that you're passionate about, you do not mind going to bed at 2 and waking up at 4. And when you find that thing, I mean, you throw your whole self into it during the season that especially for entrepreneurs when they're beginning. Otherwise, it will be an average company if you do not give your whole heart to it, which is why you see in Shark Tank, when people say, well, I still have this full-time job, and then I'm doing this little thing on the side that I give an hour to it a day. And they say, well, we want somebody who's fully engaged. And so that's how this happened. I just became fully engaged in this, and it took off, and it really became more than I was ever equipped to handle. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't think that I was meant to be an entrepreneur, but somehow God favored me and gave me the grace as this began to grow, because every single thing I had done, the small things, it was like he said, you stewarded that well. You stewarded this small thing well, and didn't say, well, where's my big thing? You stewarded this small job, or you stewarded this small hobby that you did. You stewarded it well, and therefore, God honors those who honor him and the things he gives. And so that's all I knew to do. I didn't ever want to say, God, this is too small, or this is too little for you to ever do anything. Because truthfully, it really was just a piece of leather that I learned how to dye and then engrave. And of course, then it grew into all kinds of cuffs. But I just stewarded that one thing that I knew how to do well. And then, being an attorney and being a law school professor came in handy, because as I would reach out to people or to deal with them, instead of saying I'm a crafty mom that makes bracelets, I would say I'm a law school professor, and on the side I make quote cuffs. And I would send these out to all of my favorite people that I would watch on TV while I was making these bracelets. And that's how I would say to their agents, dear so-and-so, my name is Jill Donovan. I'm a law school professor, adjunct law school professor. On the side, I make bracelets. And they would keep reading the letter because there was some credibility in being a law school professor, or maybe they thought they were going to go to court for something. But then they'd say, send me the bracelets. I'll give them to my client. I never asked for photos or anything. I just wanted to, it was just a fun thing for me. And the next thing I know, I'd turn on TV, open up magazines, and those bracelets would be on every news channel. It was everywhere. But when God opens the door, you can't shut it. When he shuts it, you can't open it. And that's exactly what happened here. So I do not credit trust me, I do not credit myself. I the only thing I say is I said, I followed a passion, and favor followed me following the passion. God's favor followed my stewardship of this passion. So
wow, wow, wow. Guys, if you're listening to this, I mean, there's so many times right now where you can hit pause and go rewind. Jill is giving so much wisdom away right now. It's unbelievable. And again, that's a story again that God, like you said earlier, God wastes nothing, right? Law school, you go to law school, it served you later. Have you ever met, do you know Tim Story, Oprah's life coach?
I should, but I don't.
Oh, he's a great friend of mine. He's been on my podcast twice. We got to connect with Tim Story would love this. Let's do this. Let's do this because I do believe that part of your success and it's work ethic and it's a lot of things we're talking about, but I do believe part of your success is your heart, right? And your kindness. And so being in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I've seen it firsthand. We have a nonprofit, part of what we do, and we work with military, fire, police called Fit First Responders. And I've seen you give hundreds and thousands of bracelets, thousands of dollars away to the spouses of our first responders. I've seen the kindness effect, which is your book title, right? And so I want to get into that for a second because I think so many people, Jill, live with a scarcity mindset that it absolutely kills their life and their blessings. I'll tell you a quick story before we jump in. My mom taught us giving up. We grew up extremely poor. We grew up living in shelters, using food stamps, visiting local food pantries, moving a lot just to survive. And I watched my mom work 4 jobs extremely hard. It's what drove me to really try to be successful at basketball, to rescue her and my sister. And so my mom would never, ever, ever not give. We'd be sitting in church and we'd have nothing. And my mom would take out whatever she had and put in the offering. I saw her give and I get choked up thinking about it because me and my sister would sit there like, we don't have food on the table, but you're giving something. And there was times where she didn't have monetary money, but she would give something. Maybe it was our time. Maybe it was us going volunteering. And my mom always told us, you cannot outgive God. And God always showed up. And I think one of the reasons you're having such great success, and I believe it's one of the biggest reasons, is because of your heart, because you are a giver. And you talked about giving bracelets away. And I've seen you do that a lot. You wrote a book on the kindness effect, experience the power of giving. There's power in giving. It's a biblical principle. It's a universal law. So I want to get into that for a moment. The kindness effect. When did this start? Were you always a giver? Did God just drop this on you? What we sow is what we reap. We know that. But obviously your motive was not just to sow to reap. It was to bless people. And how has this come back to bless your life? Can you get into that for a moment?
Sure. I grew up in Pensacola, Florida. We moved from Baltimore and moved to Pensacola, Florida. And I experienced watching people from a lack mentality of, I can't, people would say, I can't afford this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then those people just lived into that. The lack mentality, if they never got out of it, it was like they never grew into anything but lack. And I remember growing up thinking, I never want to say, no matter how much I have or how little I have, I never want to say, I can't afford. And I realized there's a lot of people that can't afford it. I just didn't want to say that out loud. And so I lived in such a way as if I could do anything I wanted to, even without the budget. I lived as if I could. I have this saying, like, live like everyone loves you, then you walk into a room differently. When you live like everyone loves you, you're not focused on yourself, because you're then, if you're living like that, then you're focused on how can I touch other people. And so I decided to live like I could do anything, even without the budget. And I mean, my husband says sometimes it would be nice to live in the Jill mind, as if, and it is super fun until it's not, but it is a way that allows me to look at anything anybody's doing and think, I can do that too, or that they're not doing and think I could do more. And so what happened is when Rusted Cuff got started, since really I had never, this wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I tried to start a business. As it began to grow and as the revenue began to climb and climb, I sort of had my hands open, and I was a good steward of saving, but I had my hands open and thought, I just want this to flow back to my team and then beyond. And so as I began to do that, a friend of mine that worked at Channel 2 said, can we have you on the news once a week for a segment, and you can call it kindness effect. And you can go undercover and you can do all of these things and surprise people. And so it's amazing that local news let us do this for 6 minutes out of a 30-minute newscast once a week. You know, there's so much bad news, so they wanted some good news.
Yeah.
And so my team, we would produce these segments of surprising people and finding in really fun ways. You know, I think anything I ever did, I wanted it to include impacting people, but I wanted it to include humor. I wanted them to laugh, and then I wanted them to be touched by whatever it is we were doing for them. And I will tell you, JC, didn't matter what kind of a day I was having or how I was feeling, when we had that scheduled to go do that day, completely changed my day. There is no replacement. You can talk yourself out of being downcast, but when you go do for somebody out of your discouragement or out of your lack, there is nothing like that. And so each week on the newscast, we would do this segment called Kindness Effect. And again, when God opens doors, no man can shut them. And so it was really one of the most life-giving things to do, although it was hard because it felt like it could look like you're doing it for show, but the truth is people get inspired to then give to others when they see people giving to others. And so we continue to do that. I wrote a book called The Kindness Effect, which again, didn't want to write a book called The Kindness Effect because it feels a little self-serving, but I said no a couple times to the publisher. And on the third time I said, okay, I feel called to help encourage other people to get out of the lack mentality and give, because when you give, even rationally, God irrationally gives back to you. And so it just it changed this whole mindset. And I would God would plant these ideas in me in the morning, and by the afternoon I was making my whole team do these things. On my 48th birthday, I was riding my bike to work, and well, it's an electronic bike, so don't get excited. I did not pedal unless somebody was looking. I only pedal when somebody's looking.
Wait. But the question is, did you master that electric bike and do it every day for 365 days?
I did until I went up some hills where the little kids go on their little mopeds, and then I wiped out, and that now I have the scars to remind me of that. So I was riding my bike to work one day, and I love God. When you're open to giving, God gives you creative ideas how to do it. And I had my favorite. I was turning 48. My favorite number is 48, and I walked into the office and I said, I want to find 48 people here. I'm going to give you $48, and you have 48 minutes to go somewhere in Tulsa and give away $48. Come back to the building, and we're going to tell each other how God led you to give away $48. And we still talk about those stories. It was the best birthday gift I could have ever received, because that is never ending joy. But these creative ideas kept coming and kept coming. And so you don't do it to get back. And the truth is, if you do it thinking you're going to get a good somebody to give you a good response, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Because when you do it to somebody who doesn't give you a good response, chances are that person needed it more, because when they're not responding, they're bound up sometimes on the inside, or they're not always, but and that is the person that God directed you to. It is not, you do not take into account how they responded. You leave it with God and let him be the one he directed you. So you let him be the one to take care of other people's responses. And I've learned that only comes over time. You give somebody and you go out of your way to do something really neat for somebody, and they're like, yeah, thanks. And you're like, did that not mean anything? Was that the wrong person? And then you're like, it's not my responsibility. If God directed me to that person to give, not my responsibility. I will pray for that person even more, because somehow there's something going on that I can't see. So tangent there, but that's how the kindness effect started.
Wow. I love it. I believe for the listeners listening right now, that is something that's going to radically change somebody's life, Jill. I believe that there's people stuck right now. They've been so stuck on their own problems, right? What's going on in their own life, that they haven't lived a life of giving. I'll never forget, teaming up with Tony Robbins and, what my mom taught me. I honestly believe that's why we live, right? We don't just live on this earth for ourselves. We live to give. And there's power when you give, not only for the other person, but also for you if the motive is pure. And so I believe right now, if you're in lack, if you want to be more, you want to do more, you want to have more, go give something. Maybe it's your time, maybe it's a resource. And I believe just like Jill, God's going to put some creative into your heart, but bless somebody, start to bless more people. Imagine if we lived in a world where everybody lived by this philosophy, the kindness effect. I love it. This is Jill Donovan. If you're just tuning in, Jill Donovan has a very successful company called the Rustic Cuff. We're talking about her bracelets and how she's giving away these bracelets generously. And you said something earlier about something about it's not about the bracelet, right? You said it's more about the connection, more about the relationship between the two people, what the gift does. I thought that was so powerful. And your bracelets are worn by celebrities. I know you don't want to brag here, but there are celebrities are wearing them all over. I think it was Miranda Lambert wore them. Gail King, like there's a lot of people that wear these bracelets all over. You were on the Oprah Winfrey show. This is a very big brand. It's a very national recognized brand, and I believe it is some of the success. Obviously, it's Jill's hard work and the team, but I believe a lot of it comes from what we just talked about. Jill's heart to give. You cannot outgive God. You can't even put a price on it. So powerful. Let's do this, Jill. I could talk to you all day. And so I want to talk about the next season of your life a little, right? The next season of your life. You have Rustic Cuff, you built this business. We talked about all these things that you've done, endeavors in life, going from an attorney to the 365 days, how you've practiced new traits and skills. What's next for Jill Donovan? I know we're talking about speaking. You have the podcast, you have the blog. What is next for Jill Donovan?
You know, I have this saying, when the grace lifts, it's time to shift. And so when the grace lifts for something, it doesn't mean that something is over. It means the way you've been doing it, the grace is lifted for that. And so I have been the CEO for 11 years, the accidental CEO-ish. And so after 11 years, 8 weeks ago, I hired a CEO for the first time.
Wow, congrats.
And because I really wasn't called to do all the logistical things that I have been doing, nor did I have the grace to do that anymore. So I am still very much in this company, creating, giving the vision and doing all of the things. But you know when your heart is shifted. You can't ask anybody else about it. You know your own heart. You know when you're being tugged towards something, but yet this is still absolutely my baby, my toddler. Rustic Cuff is. My heart has been shifted to write again and speak, which I have been doing that throughout the years, but to take more time to do that. I didn't want to start a website in the same way that I didn't want to write a book. It is just, it felt funny. And so a friend of mine said, Jill, you need a place to put all of these things that you're doing, that your heart is, that God is placing on your heart. You need somewhere to put it. So we started a website recently, jilldonovan.com. And it makes me excited. It makes me excited because you can reach people when you go speak somewhere. You know, you can reach hundreds of people, but you can reach millions if you put it in a space that people around the world can read it. And so that's what is happening.
I love it, Jill. I love it. And what you said is powerful. And I want everybody listening, because I've helped a lot of people build, personal brand businesses. And I won't help somebody if they just want to make money. That's not what I'm about. But when you build something that's purpose driven, it can change people's lives. And I believe everybody is placed on this earth for a purpose with a purpose. And so many times we downplay and downsize the things we went through, the mess, the tragedies, the heartbreaks, whatever it may be, right? We downsize the success that we've had, or the opportunities that we've learned, and the skills and knowledge we've acquired. And so we live in such an age of information, and people are searching every single day online for somebody like Jill, for somebody like you listening that has a unique skill set. There's not another Jill on this earth, right? And so there's women's lives, there's people's lives that will never get their breakthrough and what they need from God if Jill doesn't share her story. And I honestly believe that. And so I believe that's for everybody. And I believe so many times we shy away from, because we're so scared, or fear of rejection, or what are going to people think of me, or am I really an expert at that? And I told people my entire brand was built for my lowest time, my lowest moment, when I went through hell and it was painful. That's when God made himself real to me, and I surrendered my life to him. And that's when I started to put together the curriculum to live and not die at that moment, that now has gone on to change thousands and thousands of people's lives worldwide. 6 books speaking, but it never would have if I didn't say, okay, I'm looking in the mirror and God used me. And so Jill, you said some cool things. I was reading on your website. I saw the quote where hard things happen, but they don't have to hold you back in life. And I saw some stuff how you were talking to parents and believers and people saying, hey, listen, we all go through heartbreak, we all go through scary times, we all go through loss, right? Life's going to throw you a curveball, right? And so a lot of times we're not ready for that. What would you say to the person going through something right now that says, Jill, man, I love who you are. You're motivating me, you're inspiring me. And I'm experiencing a setback. I'm not where I want to be in life. I feel like I don't have the meaning. I don't have fulfillment. Maybe the business doesn't look like I want it to, or life's throwing me a curveball. Maybe I've got a scary prognosis. Maybe I'm going through a heartbreaking situation. But I'm ready for change, Jill. And I tuned in this podcast and maybe I didn't even think I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm here today for a divine appointment with Jill Donovan. Jill Donovan, what would you say to that person that says, I want to turn that even hardest setback into new beginnings?
First, I would say I could do 10 more podcasts of all the mistakes that I've made. And the mornings that I wake up and I say, why are you so disturbed, my soul? Why so downcast within me? Put your hope in God. So we only had an hour here, but I could spend 20 hours telling you of really, really hard times. And these are not just past hard times, but current hard times. And I know I'll have future hard times. Secondly, I would say if I asked you what the very best year or season of your life was, you would probably be able to tell me. And then if I asked you what the worst and most difficult season of your life is, you would probably be able to tell me that as well if you thought about it. And then if I said, if you could erase, or if you asked me, or if I asked you, if you could erase the hardest time of your life, which would subsequently erase everything that happened as a result of that, would you do that? And I guarantee you that if you ask any person who's come on the other side of hard, they would say, I would not trade that. That when you are walking through hell, do not stop, because you will just not you will sit there and burn. Keep walking, because if you keep moving forward, you just have to move forward. It's a season. It is a time of life. You will get beyond this. And I would encourage everybody, because when you're in the hard season, it requires you to do hard things. You can do hard things, because on the other side of hard is really great. You are not going to get to the other side if you do not keep moving. And I wake up every morning and I say, during difficult seasons, I can do hard things. And when I do hard things, God honors those who do hard things, and you can do all things through him. And then you get, so whatever season you're in, and there are some discouraging seasons, know that if you allow yourself to be taken out from the discouragement, then the devil's won. I mean, he doesn't have to kill your business. He doesn't have to take you out completely. He just has to despair you enough with whatever season you are in to say, I'm not going to move forward. And then when you don't move forward, you get stuck. So I would say, wake up and you say, why, my soul, are you downcast? You can ask yourself that. David talked to himself. Speak to your soul and say, put your hope in God, and put one foot in front of whatever that looks like. Do not stop. When you stop, you get stuck. When you get stuck, you get resentful, and then you're in this mire and you cannot get out. So move forward and speak to your soul. Why are you downcast? Why are you disturbed this morning? Speak to your soul and say, put your hope in God, because if you're putting your hope in the circumstance changing, it may not change today, but he is just saying, move forward, and eventually, and maybe suddenly, you will not be where you are because you have taken baby steps to move forward. That's
wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. If you're listening right now, receive that. This is what just came to me when you were talking is for the person listening right now, the listener, the viewer, this is your winning season. I believe that this podcast has given you some things to make this your winning season. I want you to hear me right now if you're listening. There is a winner inside of every single one of you. And listen, you're hearing from Jill, you're hearing from Coach JC. If God did it for us, he could do it for you. God's not a respecter of person. But also, I know that there's biblical verses that are promises. And the word of God says that all things are possible to those who believe. Put your trust in God and take ownership of that. All things are possible because I believe. Put your trust in God and know that God's working all things together for good in your life. Get a strong vision of what you want, who you're born to be. Start to know you are here on purpose. Get a strong belief around that purpose and start to walk out a winning life. Like Jill talked about earlier, we call it stacking wins, moving the ball. She talked about doing that small, simple discipline thing every single day for 365 days. Guys, if you do that, you can win. You will win. And so we believe you're here on purpose and you showed up today. Jill, as we close this episode, I want to do two things. The first thing I want you to do, I love what you just said about speaking to it, but win all day is not just about winning and losing. It's about going into the day with a mindset. And so what are some of your, or one of your daily practices, right? You talked about 365 days that you do every single day to build Jill Donovan, the creator, the powerful woman of God that we're sitting with today. Give us one winning principle that you say, JC, the listeners, this is one thing I do every single day that sets me up to go into my day to win.
Every single day I come and sit in this office by myself with the lights off and these lamps on. And I take this book right here and I write down 5 things that will move me forward. And then I put a little box. And I check the box. And I sit and I do this thing called I study God's word. I study, and then I hear his voice, and I can only do that in the quiet. And then if I do not write down what I want my night self to thank my morning self for, I want to end the day by having checked the box. I want night Jill to look back to morning Jill and say, thank you for having spent 20 minutes in the quiet, because you did that. I can rest peacefully knowing that we did things to move the ball forward. So if you don't take, wherever you are, it doesn't have to be in an office, it can be in your car. If you do not take the time to just be alone to set yourself up for the day, your night self will be upset with your morning self for not having set you up for the day.
Woo! Hey, we have the Win All Day playbook, and it's an amazing playbook. We talk about that in that. Do we have those gold ones coming out soon for the Jill Donovan brand? Those books that you just showed. When are we going to get some of those?
These.
With what you just talked about in there, so people have a playbook, a blueprint that they can follow.
Yeah, we do. Well, yeah, that's a whole other story. I have a new company called Legal Graffiti, and we sell journals there. But yeah, you writing it down, JC. It's everything. You got to write it down and take the time each day.
Jill, we're so grateful. We could spend all day together. Your wisdom, your knowledge, you're just taking the time, such a valuable asset, our time, to spend with our viewers and our listeners today. We are honored. We're believing that your greatest days are ahead of you, girlfriend. And this is your winning season. So if we could serve you in any way, let us know. We always like to end every show just making sure, Jill, is there anything else you want to say that you didn't get to say today?
I believe in your listeners, that they are listening to you for a purpose, that no time listening to you is wasted. Yeah. And I do believe that if they meditate and sit before the Lord to hear what the direction he's telling them, and then speak it to yourself, I believe they will be winners. And I just want to encourage everybody, for all the downcast people, speak to yourself, speak it out loud, and keep hearing yourself. When you hear it, it'll go down to your heart and you'll start believing it. Live like it's already happened is what I like to say.
Woo, come on, girl. All right, so tell everybody now where they can find you. Where can they connect with Jill when they're done with this podcast? Social media, your website, throw it all out there, girlfriend.
Okay, so we're rustycuff.com. We're rustycuff on Instagram, rustycuff on Facebook, jilldonovan.com, Jill Donovan on Instagram, which really is just my fun little videos. Jill Donovan on TikTok, which gets a little crazier. There's all anywhere, any channel, anywhere. And there's a book called The Kindness Effect, which you can get on Amazon. And then we have a podcast called Real Talk with Jill Donovan. And that's that.
And you can find all of that at jilldonovan.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we are honored. Thank you so much. Here's the last thing we do as we close the show. We would love for you to just say this. Yeah, this is your time. I am Jill Donovan. I am a winner. I will win and win all day. I am Jill Donovan. I am a winner. I will win and win all day.
I am Jill Donovan. I am a winner. I will win and I will win all day.
Let's go. Yes, you are. Thank you so much, Jill. Hey, this is Coach JC, and I want to thank you for listening or watching today. That concludes our episode with Jill Donovan. Go buy the book. Go visit her at social media or jilldonovan.com. And until next time, I want to remind you, you were born a winner, so go win and win all day. We'll get at you next time.